Gary DePaul with Unlabeled Leadership. Welcome to episode 28. Lisa Toenniges leads with feedback. For a system to work, you need feedback loops. And there's a lot that goes into feedback. With that, let's get started. Years ago, I met Lisa at a professional conference. And this was for the International Society for Performance Improvement, which is also known as ISPI. ISPI is the home for several performance consultants, talent developers, and even people in areas such as Lean, Six Sigma, for them to go and get their professional development. And being a professional conference, Lisa introduced a drum line, and I still have the drumsticks from that particular conference. It just goes to show that the unusual is what people remember. In Troy, Michigan, which is near Birmingham, Michigan, which is near Detroit, Lisa has her own company, Innovative Learning Group, ILG for short. This is a company of talented people that provide consulting services, and they produce performance and learning solutions that are pretty cool. I've seen some of their work. Their company has received several accolades and awards for what they do. That's pretty impressive. But I want to tell you something about Lisa that not many people know. Lisa gives back to society in big ways. For her, donating money isn't enough. No, she donates her time. She's a volunteer executive committee on the board of trustees for something called On My Own of Michigan. Now let me read you this. On My Own of Michigan assists adults with intellectual development disabilities to become independent, self-sufficient, social, and contributing citizens in their communities. I think that the work that she does there just tells you something about the quality of her character. Part 1. Take in feedback. Think about a system. In a system, you have inputs, throughputs or processes, and you have outputs. But that's not enough to make an effective system. You need something else. You need feedback loops. You need to have some way to let yourself know how well you're doing, if you're on the right track, if you're moving towards goals, and essentially, you need to know what to change. Sometimes feedback isn't easy to receive, and it's not always something that people seek. Lisa shares some stories about how feedback has helped her, and, well, I'll let Lisa tell it. Here she is.
For me, it's something I've learned over time is how to really take in feedback. And, we all get feedback in different ways, right? Sometimes we ask for it. Sometimes, somebody kind of intentionally gives it to you. Sometimes it just kind of comes up. And what I've learned is to really, you got to take it in. First you feel that gut punch, but you have to get kind of past that defensive feeling that you have. You have to say, well, boy, they were giving me that for a reason, or they said that for a reason. What's the nugget here? What's the part of this that, that I can take ownership of? What's meaningful to me? And, what do I need to think about changing about kind of the way I think or my mindset or my actual behaviors? When I heard your question, Gary, I thought about a half a dozen kind of different things dating all the way back to junior high. There was one example in junior high where there was an award that was given out at the end of 9th grade for student leadership and athlete. And I really thought that I should get it, and they announced the name and I didn't get it. And I was devastated, and to the point where my mom even went up to the school, in June when school was over and asked. And what they told her and what she told me is that I wasn't visible enough. Like enough of the teachers didn't really know me. I was captain of teams and a straight A student, but enough teachers didn't know me. So the lesson was kind of that even though you're doing the right things, you need to have a presence and speak up and have people know you and build relationships. So I guess that was one example.
When you first started out talking, I was thinking that you mentioned the feel the gut punch. that sometimes you're going along and someone offers you unsolicited feedback that you're not even prepared to receive. And I like this example that you just gave because you actually sought out the feedback and said, why did this not happen the way we had expected it to happen?
Well, right. And other times you ask for feedback. I remember once I was in some leadership training, I think, and we were supposed to get 360-degree feedback, and you were supposed to get some from a relative. And I asked my younger brother, and he said he thought I was impatient. I was like, impatient? Huh. No one's ever told me that before. I said, can you give me some examples? Or, and we talked about it and I thought about it and it's like, wow, I can really see how people could experience me that way. And it's really stuck with me. And in fact, I told my husband that this morning. He was talking about something and I said, I'm getting impatient. So we get that self-awareness, but it's sometimes hard to change, certainly.
When you ask for feedback, 'cause that's the other thing is you don't know what you're going to get, or if you're given something that's totally unexpected, it's hard to take it in.
I think as humans, our first reaction is to get defensive. Well, that's not me. I didn't say that. That's not what I meant. But if we can all say, there's something there for me. There's some part of it. There's some tiny nugget in that conversation of something that I can do differently. I had one mentor once, she happened to be with me in a client meeting. And, later that night we were out for dinner and she said, Lisa, you were so frustrated and it showed. Like, you cannot do that. As a consultant, you need to not do that. I was like, oh, okay. But right, I mean, that was a very vulnerable discussion for her to have. We're all fortunate if we can surround ourselves by at least some people that are not afraid to have those hard conversations with us that honestly, some of these things I'm describing happened, a decade ago or 20 years ago or 30 years ago, and that they just stick with you.
It raises your awareness. You may not recognize it at the time. Then it affects you for the next time you go into that meeting with a client.
Absolutely.
Part 2, Empathy and Challenging with Kindness. Feedback is complicated. It's not just a simple giving information or receiving information about what's going on. Sometimes it's subtle. Other times it comes in the form of empathy. Empathy is just a type of feedback. And of course, like Lisa's first story, sometimes it's right in your face. In this part, Lisa's going to share 2 stories. The first, the concept of feedback, is a little bit subtle, but what I like about this story is how the person in it leverages the feedback for a specific purpose. Here's Lisa.
So if I think about, Gary, an example when I've witnessed great leadership, it's actually from my exercise trainer. Like I work out with a few mornings a week. And in one hand, he's not like a formal leader or coach, but through his role as an exercise trainer, and, we spend 3 hours a week together, I've seen so many wonderful leadership qualities that I take with me throughout the day. And, we do it in the morning. So then it's just kind of a great way to remind myself of some of those good traits. So a few of the things that I feel like he does so well, he always gives you your okayness back. If you're struggling with something or you say something, he's the first one to react with, well, that's not surprising you feel that way. Or, that was super hard. No wonder you felt it was hard. Or, yeah, I have that same challenge when I try to stretch that way and you can go a lot further. So that kind of that giving you your okayness back is one quality. I guess the other is how well he just immediately picks up on kind of my mood for the morning, or kind of reads what's going on, even physically with me. If, my neck's a little hung up or my shoulder's a little funny, he picks up on that so quickly, I guess, by listening and paying attention, and then can just immediately adjust, which I think is so amazing. And I guess another trait is, if I'm not doing something quite right, he doesn't just say you're doing it wrong or do it this way. He paints a picture of what good looks like. Your arm will be outstretched as far as it can go, kind of thing. So it's more painting that picture of what good looks like than just saying, no, you're doing it wrong.
I think that's really great. It's not just about being there to physically show you how to do the exercises or make sure you're doing it right. He actually gives you feedback and reflects on your mood, picks up empathetically what's going on with you, and helps you raise awareness about what's going on. I love the idea of how he uses visualizations to picture what good looks like.
I mean, it ends up not just being the exercise part, it's just a great grounding to start the day. And I guess the final thing he does is, because he's an expert and so experienced, he knows just the right amount of challenge and how much to push me. So at the end, I feel kind of that good tired, and that good amount of accomplishment, but not like I was, just dying on the vine and, don't want to do it again in 2 more days because it was so hard. So kind of as a leader, just knowing the right amount to challenge somebody without it, being so much, it's so hard that, you can do it like once a year, not every day.
That's a good metaphor for what we do in the business world when we're working in management, working with our teams and helping them develop. We should be doing that doing that as well.
We would both agree, right? It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. You
Yes.
got to get up day after day for, a 20, 30, 40-year career and do it.
Some of these emergencies become sprint after sprint after sprint, and just recognizing that it really should be a marathon, and we need to go at the pace that's appropriate for us, but also push just a little bit to keep developing, keep growing at the same time.
Very nice.
If you're a manager or a business partner, sometimes you got to give the hard feedback. And I'm talking about the feedback that can hurt someone's feelings. In this next story, Lisa talks about this, but she also talks about the delivery, which is really important. Again, here's Lisa.
One more example is early in my career from a wonderful mentor. She basically, I'd done some work, I'd created a deliverable, and she just said, pretty straightforward, I don't think this is your best work. I think you can do better. And she wasn't mean about it. I said she was straightforward, but she was kind, she was gentle, she was challenging, she was encouraging. But, when I walked out of her office, I knew I hadn't done my best work. And that's a kind of crummy feeling. And then, you process that for a little bit, and maybe it was overnight. And then you think, oh, well, I can do this. She has confidence I can do this. And sure enough, I created something that was a whole lot better, and she, lavished me with praise. So if I come full circle then to me as a leader, I had the opportunity with somebody that I was managing where I just felt like he wasn't doing his best work. I'd worked with him for a while, and I knew what he was capable of doing, and I'd seen it before. And I had a kind of tough conversation right before he was going on summer vacation. It was a tough conversation, but he went on vacation. He came back from vacation and he brought it up. He said, boy, that was hard to hear. And I thought about what you said, and I shared it with my spouse, and my spouse, even commented and asked me some real good questions that made me just think about it. And I've really, come back from vacation kind of refreshed and, knowing that I can do this and I'll do better. So I guess the learning here is don't be afraid to have those tough conversations, because I think we all hem and haw and it's like, oh, well, not today, I'll do that the next time we talk. But if you can have the hard conversations, but do it kindly and gently and genuinely and with good intentions, you get some amazing outcomes.
You just took the words right out of my mouth. I think the big thing to learn from this is your intent. If your intention is good, if it's an act of kindness that you're doing this versus the toxic end of it, then it makes a world of difference, and people can really appreciate, not immediately, but can appreciate why you're doing it, recognizing why you're doing it.
And I think that's where the genuineness comes in. Yeah.
Being genuine, that what you're thinking and how you're feeling is congruent with what you're saying and what you're doing.
And hope for the future, like I'm confident we can do this better.
Yeah, it's not, this is the end, this is a wrong direction. You're actually helping them change the direction and giving that person the opportunity to regroup and recover.
Yeah.
Part 3, Daily Private Victories. Feedback is an opportunity to reflect. Of course, Lisa advises us to take advantage of any feedback we can get. In addition to feedback, Lisa has some advice for us, and she offers 3 specific things for us to think about. Here's Lisa.
When I think about leadership, I think it's hard. It's exhausting. I think it's the people part sometimes that, that's what keeps you up at night. Sometimes it's not some of the other challenges or decisions.
Yeah.
And I think as you look at everything that's going on in the world now, it's not getting easier as a leader. I have some friends, given the age I am, that now have children that are in leadership positions. I know one young man in his 20s, and he's basically an engineer, but he has, 8 direct reports or something. And she tells me that that's the part of his job he's struggling with. I guess my point here, I have a couple points or ideas, is number one is to ask for help from experts. Like, you can't go all this alone. You can't do it alone for years. Whether it's get an exercise trainer or get some kind of executive coach. Don't be afraid to ask for that help. Don't beat yourself up. Be patient with yourself. We all don't learn leadership in a 3-day workshop. We learn it over weeks and months and years. If I think about, that long time frame or horizon, as a leader, you need to take care of yourself. It's not selfish to take care of yourself. And I mean things like get enough sleep, drink enough water, don't take in too much caffeine, make sure you have a good exercise routine, manage your calendar well, be very protective of your calendar. I have a morning routine where I get up pretty early and I read and drink some coffee and exercise. And it's kind of like that. I think Covey calls it your private victory before you start your, public part of your day. Don't look at any of those things as being selfish. I would look at it as protecting yourself. It's like, putting on your oxygen mask first so you can help others, and asking for that help.
I've learned something new, private victory. So now when I wake up in the morning, I'm going to think about starting my day off with a private victory before I get into the public part. That is really cool. Do you know of anyone who has achieved incredible amounts of accomplishments that has not done so without the help of others?
Exactly. I don't think any one of us, because we're all just humans and we're all doing the best we can. And, we see the world through through our lens and our eyes. But from a diversity standpoint, we all have a different lens and we're all seeing different things. We need that help to kind of reflect back on us and take in a wider, broader view.
My thanks to Lisa Toenniges. If you'd like to learn more about Lisa, Innovative Learning Group, or On My Own of Michigan, go to the show notes. If you'd like to leave a comment or ask a question, go to unlabelledleadership.com, click the message icon. You can leave up to a 1-minute voicemail. Maybe I'll play it on the air. Also, thanks for you who've supported the show. I'm getting pretty close to being able to purchase transcriptions and some new equipment. Thanks again for your contributions. Thank you for listening. Until next time, lead on.